All right, welcome back to the Roast It Yourself podcast brought to you by Coffee Bean Corral and Current Crop Roasting Shop. I'm Stephen Burnett with Coffee Bean Corral in Jackson, Mississippi. And with me, as always, is Catherine Mansell, Certified Q Grader and Director of Current Crop Roasting Shop in New Orleans, Louisiana. Catherine, what is going on today?
Just roasting up a storm, getting ready for a coffee festival. How about you?
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, we had, I did a tour with somebody from Mississippi State who wanted to see our facility
Go
and see what we were doing. So that
dogs!
was pretty cool. Yeah, go dogs, right?
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. So yeah, we just did the tour, show them around. People are always amazed at how much we do out of this warehouse,
Yeah.
and which is pretty cool. So it was a lot of fun, and yeah, we'll rock and roll. But each week we set aside about 10 minutes to field questions from home coffee roasters and professionals alike about roasting, tasting, and most importantly, enjoying coffee. You can send your questions to questions@riypod.com. That's questions@riypod.com to get a nice shout out from us in an upcoming episode, and of course to get your question answered. This week's question comes from Kevin P. from Illinois, who writes, "Hello guys, big fan of the podcast. Keep up the great work." Man, thanks, Kevin. That's so sweet. We love a good shout out. We love when you give us a chance to shout ourselves out. So thank you very much. Um, he says, I have a question regarding chaff. How much does chaff contribute to coffee flavor? How diligent does someone have to be to make sure that the most amount possible is removed from the beans? Besides being messy during grinding, how much is too much after a roast? Also, is there any practical use for the stuff besides throwing it in the trash? Fire starter, compost, etc. Thanks, Kevin P. from Illinois. All right, Kevin. Well, Catherine, what do you think? That's a good question. What do you
Yeah.
think about chaff?
Um, I love chaff because my chaff loves my healthy compost bin in the back. But I want to sort of take it question by question.
Okay.
How much does chaff contribute to coffee flavor? There's really no taste to it. It doesn't really taste like anything. So from what I have tasted, it doesn't contribute to the coffee flavor in any way. It doesn't make it positive or negative.
Yeah.
How diligent does someone need to be to make sure the most amount possible is removed from the beans? So after your roast, here at Current Crop, we use these double cooling trays. The top portion of it has this very large mesh where you can shake the beans and all of the chaff goes through to the bottom. I try to get absolutely all of it every time, just to make sure that the roasted coffee that we put out has the least amount of chaff possible in it, because it can cause so much static in your grinder. You'll even see people misting their coffee before they put it in the grinder to alleviate some of that static. So I try to get as much as possible. But it comes from the process of the coffee. So if you have a natural processed coffee or a honey processed coffee, you're going to see quite a large amount of chaff. And that's because during the fermentation process, that silver skin is really just sticking to the bean. And even after it's been washed multiple times, by the time it gets to you and you roast it, there's still going to be a lot of that silver skin left on. So as you're roasting, it's gonna come off, and you'll see a lot more of it with a natural or a honey processed coffee. I think there is a huge practical use for it. I think probably the second month we opened in Current Crop in New Orleans, the amount of excess that we had and still have is extreme. So I had a couple of customers bring me this big box to use for composting. Apparently at their house, they had it on the ground, and their dogs were so obsessed with it that they couldn't actually use it because their dogs kept getting into it. So they asked me if I wanted it. And I've been dumping a lot of chaff, any of our used coffee grounds from brewing or cold brew or cuppings. You know, I do those quite often. adding much more than that, but it becomes a really healthy compost that you can use for gardening or planting anything. So I like a lot of chaff because my compost bin likes a lot of chaff.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
Yeah,
You have me wanting to get one of those little those loose leaf tea, like the little, the pinchy loose leaf tea brewer
yeah,
things that you can put in it. I want to collect some chaff and make a tea. We should do a
yeah.
video. I'm just
We
gonna
should.
like drink this chaff tea and see what we get out of it. See what that
Yeah,
flavor is. That's
right.
that. Okay. All right. You've heard it here first, folks. I am gonna do that. I'm gonna make a tea using nothing but chaff,
Yeah,
and we're going to see how it is.
yeah.
I
See what
don't
it
think
tastes
it's going
like.
to be good. Yeah. And
Probably
I
not.
think the
Probably not think
nutritional
it
value
tastes
of
like
actual
anything.
tea,
Yeah,
I think the nutritional value of actual tea will far surpass the
yeah,
just paper, the cellulose that is coming off here.
yeah,
Um, but that is yeah. I think I agree with all of this. The static is the most annoying part. I think
yeah,
that's 100% true.
yeah.
And just for full transparency, that technique with the sprayer is called the Ross droplet technique, developed
Gotcha.
by David Ross.
Yeah.
Kind of controversial,
Is it?
and kind of, well, it is because you think about. I mean, just intuitively, I'm like, and I use it myself. Don't get me wrong, but at first I resisted using it because I'm thinking, hey, you know what? I shouldn't put in my expensive coffee grinder water, right? It's very little, it's very minimal, but it nonetheless is a bit controversial in that way.
Yeah.
The first Reddit, I Googled, like, what was the guy's name? I know it was Ross something, but I didn't know the guy's name. So I Googled it while you were talking. And the first, Google, if you search for Ross droplet technique, the first Google thing is a Reddit post that says, do not use RDT or any sort of water antistatic. So
Oh
it is a
wow.
bit controversial. I know, right? I haven't read the article
Gotcha.
yet, but it is a
Yeah.
bit anti. Yeah, yeah. But anyway, yeah, I think that yes, it's a static thing.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of unsightly. Sometimes if you're giving away or you're selling ground coffee,
Yeah.
people aren't used to seeing little bits of chaff in their
Yeah.
coffee. What's this stuff? Is this okay? And so I think
Right.
that's a consideration if you're in the situation of selling or giving away coffee. It's going to be something that people who aren't familiar are going to be a bit uncomfortable with, perhaps.
Yeah.
And I know that certain, high-end roasters and professional roasters they'll tumble them, the roasted coffee, they'll blow, with fans, that kind of thing, to collect
Yeah.
chaff, even after the coffee's cooled, just to remove excess chaff from the coffee beans. That can be done. But at the level we're talking about with home roasters, I don't think it's that big a deal.
Right.
I don't think
Yeah.
it makes that big of a difference, and
Yeah.
I certainly never do anything beyond what you talked about, which is to use the cooling tray and to kind of
Yeah.
sift it.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Also, I think
so
you can. I think you can limit it also if you roast it a little bit further. I
mhm,
think you'll see more chaff stuck on the beans more
yeah,
so at a lighter roast. So if that's something you're interested in doing, roasting it a little bit further will bring more of that chaff off, depending on which roaster that you're using. Especially if you're using an air roaster, you'll be able to get a little bit
right,
more off the beans if you roast a little bit further into the roast. They'll be a little bit easier
right,
to come off. So those are a couple of different options that you can try. Get that dual basket cooling tray. I've seen people use a
yeah,
colander and shake it over a fan. That air moving is going to move a lot of it off. And we use little paint brushes to help
mm,
with the cooling tray to kind of get it off and get it down to the bottom part of it.
okay.
Yeah,
Interesting. That's a good move.
yeah,
Yeah, I have. Chaff is, like I said, it is a thing. I actually, some people have asked us, "Oh, you should put this is a heavy chaff coffee on the label or on the web
yeah,
page for the coffee." And it's like,
yeah,
well, it's not. It's just not that big of a deal.
yeah,
And yeah, I know some coffees have an excess amount. By the way, we should
yeah,
say that that wash processed coffees are going to decafs, and wash and decaf are really going to have much less than, say, a
yeah,
natural honey process. You get some with wet hold too, but the process method that you have is going to also kind of determine how much chaff is going to be on the coffee.
yeah,
But I did have one lady write an angry comment at one point, because she thought, and I had to decipher it. What I concluded was she thought we are adding this to the product. Like
Oh,
this
gotcha.
is some, yes,
Yeah,
yeah, like this is like a
it's natural.
protective layer that we're putting on there or something, and it's really annoying.
Yeah,
And so that was a fun explanation of like, no,
yeah.
no,
Just
we I don't even know how we would do that. I don't even know how to do that.
natural anatomy of the
Uh,
coffee cherry. Yeah.
totally, it's how it's supposed to be. I do like the fire starter idea though, because some people discover that accidentally, in the form of they don't change their chaff
It will
collection
catch on
device very
fire.
often.
Yes.
It's a very
Yeah,
good fire starter. So
that's
if
true.
we can
Yeah.
just do our Smokey the Bear, Smokey the Coffee Roaster PSA and say clean out your chaff collectors,
Yeah.
that would be a good use of this episode as well, because it's a great fire starter. So you don't
Yeah.
want an accidental fire. Oh man. Okay. Well, Kevin, thank you so much. I hope this helps. Catherine, did we leave something out?
Maybe. Maybe.
Maybe. I think maybe it's possible. This is not a huge subject, but it's still possible. So, dear listeners, if you have a different perspective, you think we dropped the ball somewhere, you've got another, that third use for chaff, if you mold it into like little statues, with glue or something, I don't know. If you found some other use for chaff, if you've made the tea especially,
Mm-hmm.
please let us know in the comments. We would love to hear from you on this thing. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed making it, which is not possible because we enjoy it a lot. But if you did, please leave us a rating and review on whatever podcast platform you found us on, because we're excited to watch the Roast It Yourself podcast continue to grow and reach more people. We cannot do that without you. We also could not do that without the folks that handle our audio, video, and graphic work for the podcast, making us look and sound good. Thank you so much for what you do to help us produce this every single week. Listeners, if you'd like to follow our social media, we would love it if you would, for Coffee Bean Corral, Current Crop Roasting Shop, and of course the Roast It Yourself podcast on Instagram. That would be great. We'll put out different sales or different notifications on there. It's very helpful. And fun stuff like the podcast, fun stuff like more educational content. So hop on our social medias as well. And remember, send any questions you have about coffee in general or coffee roasting in particular to questions@riypod.com. Otherwise, have a great day and happy roasting.
Thanks, Kevin.